Welcome to lesson 1110, dividing by decimals. Today we're going to talk about how to divide decimals by decimals and how to solve problems involving dividing decimals. Right, so the steps are pretty much the same up until we have to start working with the decimal. But the first thing we need to do is we actually have to set up the problem as a long division problem. We know how to do that. We put the first one on the inside, the second one on the outside. Okay, but now before we can do any dividing, because we do have these decimals here, we do need to move the decimal on the outside over until it hits the division symbol. So like we said before, the first number gets inside the door first, the second number is still waiting outside. So it's kind of like this decimal wants to get to the door and knock on it so he can be let in. All right, so we move that. We moved it once on this outside number. So what we do on the inside now is we move the decimal the same number of places as we did on the outside. So since we moved it once on the outside, now we need to move it once on the inside. Now again, just like I have these steps written out differently, you need to do the same thing here in your notes. So you should have that we set it up like this. And then you should show here that we're moving the decimal once. And then show that it moved, and then show it here again that we're moving it once. And then now your fourth step is to divide with your decimals in their new places. Okay, so we put up our chairs. Bring our decimals straight up because we still bring that decimal straight up. 12 cannot go into 3, so we place a 0 here. 12 times 0 is 0. 3 minus 0 is 3. Bring down the 6. 12 goes into 36 3 times. 3 times 12 is 36. Okay. Now in this case, we still had this extra 0, so we bring down the 0. Even though we know it's just 0, we still need to make sure to fully complete the problem. 12 goes into 0. Well, 0 times. 0 times 12 is 0. We subtract, we get 0. So in this case, our answer is 3 and 0/10. Now the most common mistake that students make here is that they forget that they need to move the decimal. You move it once on the outside, so you have to move it once on the inside. Just because there's two numbers here behind the decimal doesn't mean that we move it twice. Once here, then once here. Okay, so let's practice this. If you go to this next page in your notes, you'll notice you have this. And we're going to practice how many times we move the decimal. So for the first one, how many places do you have to move the outside decimal? If you answered 3, you were correct. So we have to move it 3 places. So because we moved it 3 places here, 1, 2, 3, how many places do we have to move it on the inside decimal? If you answered 3, you are correct. Now you'll notice when we move it 1, 2, we don't have any numbers left. So what we do is we add a 0, because we can do that, and then we move that decimal one more place. So this problem ends up looking like this. And again, you can write this notes if you choose to. I would highly suggest it as it would help you in the future. So now our decimals are at the ends here, and we can go ahead and divide. So looking at this problem, how many places do we move the outside decimal? If you answered 2, you are correct. So then how many places do we move the inside decimal? Again, if you answered 2, you are correct because we move the same numbers on the inside as we do on the outside. All right, so now this is your turn. I want you to try this. I want you to set it up. Okay, go through your steps. You do have the steps listed for you down here. Okay, and you can go through and you can press play to check that you set it up correctly before you divide it, or you can try it all at once. That is completely up to you. We'll go ahead and pause and try it, and when you come back, we'll go over your answer. All right, so if you're checking to set up the problem, you should have set it up like this. Okay, so you would have moved the decimal twice, and you would have had to add a 0 here. Okay, if you didn't divide it yet, go ahead and pause and do the division. Make sure to turn away from the computer, because if you're just copying, that's not going to help. Otherwise, if you completed the problem, you found that 350 was your answer. Okay, because that decimal goes straight up because it was at the end, and because it was at the end, we actually don't have to add it into our answer at all. All right, moving along, we are going to try some word problems here. So 5 friends share an extra large pizza and a liter of Pepsi at Domino's. The total cost is $23.75. How much does each friend owe for the bill? So we're going to highlight the important information. And I want you to try this on your own and then come back and check and see if you found the correct information. In this case, it's important to note that 5 people were part of the bill. The total was $23.75. And then, of course, the question was important as well. Knowing that they got the extra large pizza and the liter of Pepsi, those were not important. It's just important to know how many people, how much the bill was, okay, so you know what to divide by. As if you think about it, you're taking the $23.75 and you're dividing it among the 5 people. Okay. So then now I will work on this again with you. So the problem becomes $23.75, and we're dividing it out by 5 people. So we set up our long division. $23.75 divided by 5. Put up our chairs. And I'm going to bring my decimal straight up. Okay. We don't have enough pieces to make a full group here, so 0 times 5 is 0. 2 minus 0 is 2. Bring down the 3. We have 23 pieces. We can make 4 groups of 5 with those 23 pieces. 5 times 4 is 20. 23 minus 20 is 0. Bring down the 7. Okay, and just for now, I'm going to move this up over here. So now 5 goes into 37 7 times. So 37 minus 35 is 2. And we have to bring down the 5, which will end up coming over here. I apologize, I don't have enough room. And I can make 5 groups of 5 with the 25 pieces. 5 times 5 is 25. I have nothing left over. So each person owes $4.75. You can always check your answer by going back and multiplying and saying, okay, well, if each person pays $4.75 times the 5 people that are paying, you should come up with that total cost. Okay, again, read this problem and pause, and when you come back, we'll check to make sure that you have the correct information highlighted, and then we'll go on from there. All right, the important information at this point is that the stack measures 9/10 of a centimeter in height, and that each paper is 1/100th centimeter thick. Okay, so you have a stack this tall, and each piece of paper is that thick. So can you figure out how many copies were made? And you can do this because you're taking how tall something is. Okay, so you're taking all those sheets and dividing it by the thickness of each sheet to figure out how many you could fit in here. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to set up the problem, try it, and post your answer to Edmodo. If you have any questions, make sure to write them in your workbook or post them on Edmodo so we can go over them in class tomorrow.